Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dea Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So, grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to Here Where You Belong podcast. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to someone whose message is so aligned. There's no question that they found their place here to share their stories. I'm Dea, your host, and our guest today is sharing how to turn pain into purpose. Get ready to be inspired and blessed. Let's welcome Juan Espinoza. Hey, Juan.
Hello.
Oh, I've got a bit more to tell you about our guest. Juan is a veteran. Oh, thank you for your service. He authored Unbroken, Turning Pain into Purpose in just 2 days. It's a story about resilience, growth, and finding purpose even in the darkest moments. Juan is an inspirational speaker and resilience advocate. His journey is a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity. From a childhood shaped by challenges, to combat deployments, a painful divorce, and personal loss, Juan has faced life's toughest trials. Yet, he has emerged with a powerful message about resilience, turning pain into purpose and finding strength in even the darkest times. His story is not just one of survival, but of transformation. And today he's here to share his insights on how we can all rise above life's challenges and thrive. Welcome, Juan.
So glad to be here. Thank you so much.
We are so glad to have you. Now, is there anything I left out or you want to correct or add to?
Definitely, I think the how I wrote the book and my story is very intriguing for the most. How I wrote my book was I was going through a lot of pain, and as a lot of people do, they find things to try to numb that pain. Throughout the years I've always buried things like a lot of people do. This one night, I was just in a lot of pain. I'm just like, I'm gonna go work out at night, and it was raining, and outside in my backyard there's like a metal awning, so you hear like that, tink tink noise. And it was definitely storming, so I was working out, and just something, I don't know what it was, it just told me just to walk out. So I walked out and just like fell to my knees and just screamed, just tell me my purpose. And at that point I felt like life was just kicking me on the ground. I couldn't escape. But the minute I said that, I felt this fire I've never felt before. And I stood up and just screamed, just after everything I've been through, after everything I've lost, after all the women I loved left, you can't beat me. And in the distance, lightning went off. Like it was far, so I could see a little flash. And I just walked in. I grabbed my bottle of whiskey, and I went to start writing my book. And I was crying my eyes out for 2 days.
Wow.
It's definitely it was painful. To me, it felt like about 100 therapy sessions in 2 days. But after that, I just knew like I had to, I just had to do it.
Well, where did all the pain come from? I know we listed a number of things, but like looking back at your childhood even, when did you first realize you were challenged, or what were some of the early in your life pains that you had?
The big one was, so I was raised by my stepmom, but she's my mom. In my book, I mentioned she was there. My biological mom left when I was 3. And so basically my stepmom was the definition of a mother, and she's more of my guiding point of how to be a mom. A mom and a parent, what a mom should be like. So that was the first pain I had. It's probably the biggest one I had when I was growing up. I was a rebellious child, and I was just a dumb kid. But I can't say my childhood was bad besides that. When you're realize when you're biological mom leaves, you question yourself. Am I a good son, right? Or maybe I should have been better. She would have stayed. So that was more of a childhood challenge I had.
And so what motivated you to join the military?
So my family wasn't, we weren't poor, but we weren't like well off. It was just like we were decent, I would say. I didn't really pay attention in school because I was, a dumb kid and just wanted to have fun and make mistakes and have a good time. So scholarships wasn't an option. My family could afford to send me to just pay for college, so it's either a 9 to 5 or I just felt I could do better. So the military was definitely that's the route I went.
And did the military give you a sense of belonging, or I mean, because there's so much camaraderie and you're going through training together with other people. Did that help in your belonging, or did you feel like, why am I here?
Oh, it was definitely belonging. I felt, it was amazing being around those guys and knowing everything about those guys, their family. We felt we're a very close-knit group, and the military definitely gave me that. And I think that's probably why, later in my life, I went back to the military. I went overseas a few times because I felt that. And being back home, you really don't feel that. It's a different type of experience and belonging by going through hard times together and also laughing at the same time.
Well, if you haven't experienced it, you you just really can't relate in any way. Anytime it's that foxhole faith and foxhole, camaraderie. Yeah, where were you deployed?
So my first deployment was in Afghanistan, 2010. That was just like the heart of the war. It was my family was very uncertain. I also my aunt would say you're gonna die, so I want to take out a life insurance policy on you. So which that's a real possibility. So that was back in 2010 when I went to Afghanistan. I was only at my unit for about 4 months.
Wow, that was not reassuring, I would think. You're going to die, so I'm going to take out. But the life insurance wouldn't have helped you.
Mm.
Okay, but so along the way, I mean, you wrote your book. So I mean, you wrote it in 2 days. How long from when it was written to actually published, or what's that? Tell us that story.
So I wrote my book in December, like a few months ago, the beginning of December. I would say probably around the second or third or so, around that time frame. And then after I wrote it, I basically had it get edited and made a cover made. The picture, I also have a background in photography, just more of a hobby. So that picture is literally, I took that picture for my cover. So by the time it got published and online was the 26th of December. So about, I don't know, a little over 3 weeks or so, which is probably 2 months ago, give or take, a little less.
That is remarkable. I've talked to authors that have spent 10, 20 years writing a book, but you had this burning message and you got it out. And it is would you say it's like a magnet that is attracting people that have pain and would like to find purpose?
Exactly. I think that big part of my book, and I think why I wrote the book is we all have pain. We have to share it to make ourselves feel better. A big thing I like to say is, war starts when people don't talk. Either war in Afghanistan or war overseas or war in a marriage or war within yourself. The minute you stop talking, that's when it starts. So if I can be vulnerable and share my story, I think it allows people or gives them, it feels like it gives them permission to share their vulnerabilities.
Do you have a story about someone who's read your book that you would like to share about the impact it had?
I have a few, but a big one I have is actually my aunt. So she's a very
Your life insurance?
yes. So that's her. Not that story, but basically after I wrote my book, this was probably the beginning of January. So she came over and she basically talking how I wrote my book. And I told her I wrote it through pain, through, all this stuff. And then I looked at her and I was like, "What's your pain?" And her eyes, I could see her eyes start swelling up. And she starts telling about her pain. So we talk about it. And later that night, we had a family barbecue. We were laughing. So you go from tears of pain and then also feeling that weight lifted. I'm a very, I grew up in a Hispanic culture, so we don't talk about feelings. We don't cry. We definitely don't do anything like that. And my aunt is a more very, she's been to church. She goes multiple times a week. She's been doing it longer than I can remember, very um, spiritual. And later she said, you're an angel we never knew we needed. So that for me just cut my throat.
That really, that's what it's about. That I know that had to make you feel good. And did she know you were writing the book, or she didn't until you?
Nobody, nobody
Nope.
knew I wrote my book. Even so, my sisters read my book. They cried, and they asked. Even family friends are like, "I didn't know you were writing a book." I was like, "I didn't know I was writing a book."
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. And you said that's a great one. That's a big one. Did you have some other stories?
Yeah, so I have a few, and another coworker, an older coworker. She told me, after I wrote my book, she's like, I saw you wrote your book. Like, I read it. It's amazing. It's definitely inspiring. But she told me, like, I have, a lot of pain. I'm just tired of running. Mind you, like, this old coworker, she's probably 60s and up. And so I asked her, I was like, do you drink? And she's like, yeah. I was like, let's go have a drink because you're probably gonna need it. And so we talk. She starts crying, and after that, she starts laughing and saying, I haven't felt this way in a lot of years. It's more that weight's lifted when we start talking about the troubling, the deep stuff.
So that's the question. Next question I wanted to ask. Why do you think your book is that impactful or that effective? What is it about your book that makes it effective?
I think it's a very honest, raw truth. So for my family itself, I'm not the typical person, especially with my military background. I have about 5 years overseas. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. So when I share my vulnerabilities, everybody else basically relates and they start sharing theirs. Like, well, what I went through is not so bad as what he went through. If he's able to do it, I can do it. And I think it comes from a different perspective of not just military, but also being a father, having a divorce, having heartbreak and losing people you love. It resonates with everybody, not just one demographic or gender.
Well, I think that's so true because um, there is no one who has lived a life that has made it without pain of some kind, loss of some kind. Even being in a crowded room, you can still feel alone and feel the pain of isolation in a room full of people. So, um, and there are different kinds of pain, and each person has their own kind, but every every pain is, well, it sounds dumb, painful.
Exactly. I think that's an important thing is we all feel pain, but the minute you change your perspective, that's when your life changes. And I tell a few people, and I was like, what if I can change your life just with one word? You know, and I've done it. It's perspective. If you're able to change your perspective and see the good, the good times you have, what you learn from it, but also see the bad times you have and what you learn from that as well, you can be a very strong, unbeatable character, and you have that resilience now because guess what? You're not getting the good stuff. You're also getting the bad stuff, and you're still learning.
I perspective is so key. I talk about two different kinds of people and that are, and there's probably more, but I consider two kinds of people. They're either buzzards that fly around looking for dead stuff to eat, or hummingbirds that fly around looking for sweet nectar. And we choose whether we're a buzzard or a hummingbird because what we look for is what we're going to find. And it's all about perspective. If we have the right perspective, then if we want to be a hummingbird and have the right perspective, we'll see the good around us.
Exactly. I think that's a very important factor because when I was overseas the first time, you see the worst human beings have to offer and what they can do, the violence, it's very impactful and traumatizing, but also you see the beauty of life when you come home and just how wonderful just life is, the people around you, the just breathing, living. You see that beauty because you saw the far end of just the violence and that experience. And now you change your perspective. You're like, well, it's raining today. Like there's birds flying. This is wonderful.
I can totally understand that. Seeing that, I mean, perspective, change your perspective. It's your choice whether you're a victim or a victor.
Exactly. It's all about perspective. Don't go, why me? Go more of like, what can I learn from this experience? Like it sucks, but what can I learn from this?
Well, I guess it's general, but could you give us a specific about a pain and what you learned from it, for an example?
My divorce, actually, so what happened was I was married for about 9 years. I tried to fit a mold just to maybe bring some normalcy, be a mold of just what a father should be like or a husband should be like, provide the bills. I focus financially on that, just providing the bills, make sure everybody's taken care of like financially, where I lack the emotional part. So, long story short, towards the end, I found out my then wife basically had an affair, got pregnant, and claimed the baby was mine. And I find out it wasn't. So that's when I filed for divorce. But I learned the power of forgiveness through that
Mm.
experience. It's For the longest time, I've thought forgiveness meant like, why should I let them off the hook? Like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, they should feel pain because I'm hurting here. But forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. You're not forgiving them, you're forgiving yourself for maybe being in a situation you didn't know about or being in a situation that you could have done better. But forgiving yourself to telling yourself it's okay. Like, the power of forgiveness I learned through that experience.
Was this during the time of your deployments or after you came back?
So it was probably towards the end of my last. So I was private contracting in Afghanistan about 3 years. I came home for about 3 weeks or so. Halfway point is when I got back. Basically, that's when everything happened.
Right. You are so right about the forgiveness. It has been said, and I don't mean to be trite, but holding a grudge is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Exactly.
It doesn't help the situation. And it goes back to your power word of perspective, right? Let's have a
Exactly.
perspective here of forgiveness. This is amazing, but we're going to take a quick break right here and be right back with Juan Espinoza on Here Where You Belong. See you in a minute. Hey there! Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. And we're back with my fabulous guest today, Juan Espinoza. And on the second half of the podcast, I like to ask my favorite 3 questions. The first one is, Juan, tell us, what do you feel like is your greatest accomplishment?
So I have two, but I'm just gonna, being a father is fantastic. That's definitely one of my greatest accomplishments. But also in myself would be writing my book. It was difficult to write, but I learned the impact it has on others. It's inspiring them to help themselves or to see things from a different perspective. And that definitely is my greatest accomplishment for like myself. It's writing my book.
I, well, you've already shared with us about the impact it had on your aunt who bought life insurance for you because you might die in the in your deployment. Ooh, that's encouraging. Or your sisters that read it, and just the impact. It it has to make the pain feel valuable.
Exactly. It's changed the perspective where maybe coworkers, they had like, I had no idea that you were going through this or you've been through this. It made them see me from a different perspective, not just a coworker, but also an individual. Like as a person, myself, being authentic to the core.
So when you, they're having that response after they've read your book or found out you wrote a book, and having written the book and gone through your experience and come out being more authentic and vulnerable, do you see yourself looking at other people differently? Like your coworker saying, I had no idea you were going through that. Are you more attentive to the fact that other people might be going through struggles?
Definitely. I've talked to a few people and I tell them, my story, I wrote a book and so, but I ask them not just the surface level stuff. It's what's the deep stuff? Tell me the deep stuff that's going through, this is mine. What's yours? And they tell me. I had a few people who were just like, well, if I tell you, you're gonna look at me differently. I was like, no, not at all. So knowing that everybody's hurting at one point, you see things from a different perspective. To me, it's you see them as who they are and their journey they're going through.
Do you have some favorite questions that you ask?
So one of the first ones I like to ask, it's what is your deepest pain and what did you learn from it? That's a deep one. Usually it's either in a divorce or or got cheated on or their family member passed away or they don't feel like they belong. And I'll ask them, okay, what did you do to get out of that? Or what are you doing? And what are you learning in the process?
That is a pretty deep question. And have you ever had any, I mean, because it takes a lot for someone to open up and go ahead and share that. Have you ever had anybody, well, I don't really have any deep pain. Have you come to that?
I've got that a few times. And it's usually the same thing. Is like I tell them it's okay if you don't want to share. I understand. Like people are guarded, but everybody has a pain. Like there's no one in this world that doesn't have a pain of some sort. Either
Right.
they don't realize it or they don't want to accept it. It's one or the other.
Yeah, denial is not a river in Egypt.
Exactly. So I think that's a big thing. People don't want to be vulnerable, but I really haven't had that happen too often because I usually tell them my story, like the good and the bad. So when I share that vulnerability with them and my story, they usually open up pretty fast because it's deep.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, let's codify it, so to speak. You um, are, by example, sharing your pain, and it gives them a safe space.
Exactly.
They feel safe enough to share because, I mean, if you just walked up to someone and said, "Hey, tell me your deepest pain and how'd you deal with it," that's not going to do it. You have to establish a ground, uh, a foundation to the conversation.
Exactly. You have to build that trust. It's all about trust. So
Oh,
once I
yeah,
build that trust and we talk, and then I share, my story, then I get to that, that's probably my favorite question to ask, but it's not like a very first question to ask. It's
see,
just more.
okay, good,
So once we get there, then, they have that safe space and they know like, I'm not going to judge them.
right. Um, there's a strategy to it. Now, you probably are doing it just naturally because of where you're coming from, and that uh, you are now comfortable in your own skin. Actually, when we talk about belonging, you have to belong to yourself first. You feel comfortable belonging to your story, belonging to where you are, the pain that you've gone through, and adopting a perspective that gives you purpose. And because of that, you are able to impact other people.
Exactly. I think it's belong to you. You have to belong to yourself to belong to others, right? To feel like you belong, you have to be comfortable in your own skin and be very authentic. And I've learned that the hard way, to where it's okay to have the good stuff and the bad stuff. But at the end of the day, be yourself. No matter the case is, just be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of leads us to how you answered what makes you feel like you belong. My
Exactly.
second question. So expound on what makes you feel like you belong.
The biggest one is just being authentic and just being you. And that's a very important thing that I've learned the hard way. It's you have to embrace yourself and love yourself for who you are. A lot of people are insecure just the fact of how social media is nowadays. Everybody wants to be somebody they're not. but at the end of the day, they're not really belonging to themselves because they're not being genuine to who they are, the good stuff. Maybe you laugh and your nose crinkles, or maybe you are skinny, right? But at the end of the day, that's you. Like, embrace it. It's okay.
Have you ever felt like being your own self, you were rejected?
Yes, definitely.
And how did you, do you have a story about that? And or how did you deal with that?
I don't really have a story about that. I think more of just what I felt. But when I look at it from a different perspective, I realize it's okay. Like, not everybody's gonna like you. That's fine. But as long as you're yourself, that's what matters.
Right, because guess what? You're the only person that's going to be with you the whole your whole
Mhm.
life.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to be your own best friend because you're the only one that really cares the most about you, like a good friend. And nobody belongs everywhere.
So definitely, no one's gonna look out for you more than you look out for yourself.
Right.
So that's very important. I think that's the root of just happiness is just accepting who you are as you are. If you want to change something about you, go ahead. You can do it, but do it for yourself, not for anybody else.
Oh, that's a good point. Doing it for yourself and not someone else, because then you're not being authentic. You need to be. And here's the way I look at it. Each person is on the earth in time and space when they are for a purpose. You found your purpose is helping people find their purpose in pain. And um, but if you were doing something else and not that, the people like your aunt or your sisters or your coworkers would not have had the benefit of you doing what you're here to do. And each one of us have something we're supposed to be about because there's someone else in the world that needs us to be our authentic self, that we are the only ones can do that purpose because it's our purpose while we're here. Other people, I mean, they can sort of do it maybe in their way, but you specifically have your message that people need. And I know it's I'm not being original, but Judy Garland says, why be a second-rate version of someone else when you can be a first-rate version of yourself? So
Exactly.
we need people to be who they're made to be and stop trying to be somebody else.
Definitely. I think that's a part and a very important part of society is just be yourself. And you're not gonna get maybe everybody you want. It's okay. But at the end of the day, you're happy in your own skin. You're happy being yourself. You're happy, living the way you want to live because you love yourself and you're authentic to yourself.
Now, in that, being your own self, you do have to live in the world. So you need to be your best self, not, well, I don't want to say please and thank you, or I don't want to respect somebody else's privacy. That's not really that's not what we mean by being authentic and true to yourself.
Exactly. You have to be respectful. Like, you don't want to be disrespectful just 'cause, well, that's who I am. Like, no, there's respect and trust. Like, be yourself as in your own skin. Just don't do anything bad or, you know, just be yourself.
And grow in your emotional intelligence, grow in your understanding of other people, because being your own self means finding your purpose on this earth to make other people's lives uh, show up in the world for other people, being your own self.
Exactly. I think
So
that's a big part.
we're not promoting people to go out and go, well, I'm just got to be me, and then you're running over people. That's not.
It
Oh,
definitely, if you're of service, to me, it's always way better to be served. Basically, to be of service than to be served, so to speak. Help others, and you'll find purpose in yourself as well. And you do that by building up yourself, being the best version of yourself, emotional intelligence, helping others. You'll definitely see things from a different light when you do that.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, you'll get whatever you want as long as you help as many people get what they want.
Exactly.
And I can't remember who said that, but that's not original. I'm just going to give that to whoever. Jim Rohn? No, I don't know. Anywho, the third question is, what is your favorite quote? And I'm guessing you probably have a lot of favorite quotes, but just pick one or two or three.
So the best ones are actually, I'll pick my favorite one. It's pain is a teacher. What is it teaching me?
Mm. That is write that on, get a dry erase marker and write that on your bathroom mirror.
Definitely, it's an original. I made it. I think I
Oh,
did. So, like I said, I don't know anybody else. I haven't looked it up to see if like maybe it's not an original quote, but I felt that when I wrote my book. So maybe it's the original. I'm not 100% sure.
I've never heard it.
So that
I'll accept it as original with you.
Yeah, definitely.
But there again, that's using your magic word of perspective.
Exactly. That's why I changed things where people were like, well, not all pain is a teacher. I was like, well, think about it. You break your leg. Maybe don't do that, right? You learn maybe not to do that, right? You got your heart broken. Okay, well, what did you do right? What did you do wrong? But what didn't you do? Pain is teaching you something there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you change our perspective, that's where we see the beauty in the good and the bad.
Right. Well, there's a story about, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, and it doesn't have to be, but the point is made. There was a man that had a horse farm, and one of the neighbors came by. How's it going today? Well, our horse ran away. Oh no, that's terrible. And he comes back the next day and says, our horse came back and brought a herd of wild horses with him. Oh wow, that's great. And he goes, yeah, but my son was trying to break one of the horses and got thrown and broke his leg. Oh no, that's terrible. And then he came back later and he goes, how's it going now? And he said, well, my son had a broken leg and the military came by and didn't deploy him because his leg was broken. Oh, that's good. So it's all about perspective.
Exactly. I totally agree.
So yeah, we gotta, that's a powerful word. Powerful word. So, this has been amazing. And I so appreciate it, Juan. I'm so excited about your book and the impact it's having on people. Before we close, do you have any final words that you'd like to say to the listeners?
Definitely. So pick up my book. It's on Amazon. Unbroken, Turning Pain to Purpose, My Story, Juan Espinoza. Also have my website, juanespinoza.me. And it's very important that there's a contact form. If you're having trouble or you're in pain or you want to talk to somebody, just send me a contact form. It comes directly to me and I'll reply and we'll schedule a date to talk and we'll just talk about anything just to maybe I can help people see their pain as a purpose and just to help as many people as I can.
That is such a blessing because, like we said, everybody has pain somehow, some way. And to know that there's someone you can reach out to and get help and guidance and seeing a purpose in it, that's so wonderful. To our amazing guest, Juan, thank you. And to our listeners, belongers, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember you belong. This is Dea Irby with Here Where You Belong podcast, signing off. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Here Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.